Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the big broadcast football edition, man. We got to do it, man. You know, it's so nice we couldn't do it twice. We had to do it three times, maybe four
Yeah,
times. Stay tuned. I'm here, Big Step, your host with the most. And we're here with Unc Football, man. Talk to him, brother. Tell them how you feel today.
feeling all right. Feeling all right. I had a friend in Florida going through all that business with my namesake yesterday, so I was having to go through all of that. I spent most of the day on top of my regular work, sort of like keeping an eye on that and fielding questions from her and all that. It's just
Yeah.
madness watching what I did, man. I shouldn't have gone to Florida.
It's insane, man. So wait. Were you actually in Florida yesterday? Almost, maybe were you?
I'm joking. Hurricane Ian.
Okay, shit. Okay. I'm slow, bro. I'm like, yo. I
Yeah,
didn't,
yeah.
I didn't even get that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Bruh. I don't know. I'm just a long week for your boy, so I'm just fatigued. So,
Right.
but prayers up for people out there, man. Shouts out to you for looking out for your friend, man.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'll say it with this: somebody who's not looking out for their friends or even their neighbors, this idiot Brett Favre. For
Yeah.
those who are not aware, or I don't know how you wouldn't be, but also because the sports media is very dumb and slow, Brett Favre is in a whole controversy of using money, right, from the state of Mississippi, laundering money from people who are poor, people who are on welfare, in order
Yeah.
to fund a volleyball gym center for his daughter, for his alma mater, basically, and also his daughter's volleyball team. It is disgusting. It's messed
Yeah.
up. And it's a scandal that involved even the former governor of
Yeah.
Mississippi. So
Yeah.
it's a whole thing. It's blowing up in the news. And allegedly Brett Favre could get jail time, man. But Unc, man, tell him about this because you actually put me on to some more details about this, especially
Yeah.
this week, bro. What do you think of that, man?
Well, it's really disgusting. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, it kind of represents a little bit of a juncture where America is a little bit right now. You have intersections of sports, culture, privilege, things like that, and the level of the word is commonly used, but there's no other word for it. But just the amount of grift that is going on right now in connected political circles, in particular, a lot of conservative ones with the era that's been ushered in by Donald Trump. Guys like Farve, they jump all over that stuff. And it's really, really an ugly thing because this money, what was really going on here is that there was up to like the guy who just actually was the reason a lot of this is coming out right now is because you've got people in both civil and criminal court responding to a federal audit of the Mississippi Department of Human Services welfare fund. And they found that something like $98 million. Now, that not all of that went far, right? But he wasn't the only one in line, right? You're almost talking like a gang at this point of the connected Republicans in a state like Mississippi. And so what it really was is that Favre had put his name out there, I guess back in 17 or 18, saying that he would, get this project done, et cetera, et cetera. And he, pretty much personally, vouched for it, right? But he got wind of the idea that funds could be redirected from government to these other projects. And how they worked, it was really kind of nefarious because they would get these non-governmental organizations, these non-profits, right, to serve as sort of a layered middle person from that way the Department of Human Services in Mississippi, the people who were responsible for doling out money for the poorest of the poor, we were talking about single mothers and children, specifically for non-bricks and mortar projects. So the money really is just meant to be an emergency fund for poor people. And what they've done is managed to sort of like provide a service by saying that Farve was going to make like all these speeches. They paid him $1 million for speeches he didn't make, for one, right? I guess he's a mentor or some kind of thing that poor children are going to benefit from. Now, he paid that back to his credit, but he's arguing over the interest, which is like chump change. But on top of that, so what he did after that, he got the idea that if they could make up these services that they were going to provide at Southern Mississippi, that, they could find $5 million for the project he's looking to build. right? And what they do, what they're offering is that, oh, there's going to be all these youth services for a building that hasn't been constructed yet. So, yeah, the federal government was not pleased when they went and did that audit. And there has the former guy, what's his name? The guy who was the head of the Department of Human Services has actually pleaded guilty, and that's why some of
Mm,
these names are coming up. That's why these text messages are coming out because Farve, and this is where Farve gets ugly in all this. Farve, once he got this idea that he could like start the grift off of these services, and that he had complicit Republicans with him in the state. And I'm not
mhm.
pointing fingers necessarily, but they are the cabal that runs Mississippi, and they just do.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, so yeah, he got this money built out of these departments by offering sort of sham services through these nonprofits, and they're all getting caught up in it right now. And if Favre doesn't have a very good lawyer on retainer right now, because he hasn't been charged with anything yet. But as we've seen with some other stuff going on with some of that grift and corruption that's going on out there, the DOJ does move slowly, but they move surely. And with all these
Mm.
things coming out, Favre needs to get all over it because really, I mean, those text messages that came out the other day,
Yes, I saw them.
they really make Favre look like the aggressor. And the people who know better, guys like the former governor, who are saying like, look, this you can't just do that, right? People will go to jail, and he said as much in his text. And Favre didn't get the message. He just kept persisting. And the worst part is this is a guy who made $141 million just in salary.
Yes, before
Years
endorsements. Before
before
endorse.
endorsements, right?
Yep.
So even if the tax man lops off 50% of that, right? You got no financial planning, which I'm sure he did. That's still $70 million plus your endorsement money that cat has made over the years. You're telling me that you really can't find $5 million, or your influence is so minuscule despite your legendary status that you can't rally up, $5 million for the kids, right? But no,
Yeah.
he didn't have it, and he didn't really have a lot of buyers for that. So instead, he just took the easy way out. And
Yep.
yeah,
This
and
this this is a fact. This is a fact. This is you broke it down great, man. I didn't even know some of the details you added onto there. The simple fact remains this man used his privilege. Okay, let's just
mhm,
keep it blunt. I mean, he's an older white man who is a superstar quarterback in
yep,
his prime. You know what I
yep,
mean? There were even debates at times saying that he's one of the greatest. Obviously not, but you know, he's so despicable because you're right. In those text messages, he seemed like he was pushing the envelope. He wasn't trying to slow it down.
yep,
This shows me that this is a pattern of behavior. He thinks nothing is gonna happen. Thinks he's untouchable.
yeah, oh yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
no,
The arrogance. Because
yeah,
he even said in some of those texts, "Oh, let's make sure the media doesn't find out."
that's
Okay,
it.
how about the police? How
Yeah,
about
yeah,
law enforcement? Because you think
yeah,
the white collar crime like this, I think this is the worst part of it. It's taking from the people who are at the very bottom of society,
yeah.
who are just
Yes,
trying to scrape by. You know what I
especially in
mean?
this situation, that money literally came out of a fund that is designed to help people in emergencies, to make sure that
Exactly.
and these programs are very successful about in removing kids from poverty.
They do
um,
actually, yes.
yeah, I mean, it's people hate to admit it, but there are solutions for poverty, and tax
I'll,
people
I'll
enough.
I'll be real, man. Even when I was younger, man, I remember some after school, even before school programs I would be in, you know what I'm saying? Even sports had such a big impact on me.
Yeah.
Sometimes I couldn't afford football pads and it'd be subsidized by the coach, you know what I mean? So when you
Hmm.
grow in certain environments and you're maybe not the most wealthy or poor environments, these social services do come in handy. And people like that, bro. This is why when you see all these sports stories in sports media, we have to highlight these as well, man, because there's a
Yep.
beautiful side to football, which we're gonna get to. Don't worry about it.
Hmm.
We're gonna
Yep.
get to that. But then there's the ugly side of football, and we just
Yeah.
have to speak on that and highlight that. And any last things you want to say before we get to this analysis, bro?
Well, it's just that it's such a shame because Brett
Yes.
Favre has been a legendary guy. He wasn't always my favorite quarterback, but there was a place for him, this gunslinger and all that type of thing. But I'm
Mhm.
sorry, with I don't think it's ever happened in the history of. I don't think that they've ever Pete Rosed anybody in football. But I'm angry enough at this guy that
Yeah.
I'd be all for pulling the guy's jacket, or at least putting like another little plaque at the bottom of his bust, with an asterisk that says this guy's a thief. Um,
Uh,
you know what I mean? So I mean, I'm sure the law is going to have their thing to say about it, but we as sports fans, you have to ask yourself, how much do you really want to think of him as a literally Hall of Famer? Does he really
yeah.
deserve that? Now, that's a whole other can of worms that people will debate. Like, well, who else is in the Hall of Fame that just done terrible things, Bob, broken laws, etc. But we're talking about reverse Robin Hood here. You're literally stealing from the
From the
most wretched
poor.
and poor, and for the benefit of the rich.
It's this fucked up. It's messed up. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah,
There's a lot of guys in the Football Hall of Fame who have extremely sketchy to evil realities, man. And the thing about that is that, yes, I think there should be some kind of Pete Rose type of thing, but I doubt that the NFL is willing to do that. But I think it should be considered for guys like this. But
yeah.
just to switch the lines up, let's talk about the previous week. Now, nothing is as ugly as what Brett Favre did, but that Green Bay and Tampa Bay game was a gross. It was
That
ugly.
was
it
terrible.
was it was an ugly game, brother.
Yeah,
Let's talk about it. There was a good amount of ugly games actually. For me, a
yeah,
lot of low scoring games. I'll be real. I did not expect a shootout with Tampa and Green Bay. That's fair. Great defenses, great special teams.
yeah.
But then you look at a game, right? Like the 49ers, right? And the
Putrid,
Broncos. Well,
putrid.
what? And then you look at a game like Miami versus the Bills. Actually, pretty entertaining game, but
But
very low
much lower
scoring.
scoring than we'd imagined.
Very low scoring than we imagined, which leads me to think my overall analysis of last week's game, week 3, was that there was a lot of upsets in a sense, but there was a lot of great defense and special teams play that left games to just a field goal or even freaking butt punts. Like, what?
I was,
Have you
I was
ever seen that? The Miami
I
butt
mean,
punts.
yes, I
Come on,
have
man.
seen terrible things like that, but it's very rare at the pro levels. Why Buddy didn't just, try to angle it out of there? Why? That was one of the more comedic things I'd seen in football in a while. I guess to that point, I would
Yeah,
have to
man.
say that defenses are still sort of leveraged over offense right now.
Yeah,
But regards that game in particular, what I saw a lot of actually, because neither Brady nor Rogers had like pathetic days. I think they
yeah.
threw for about 250 or whatever. But Brady did all his passing between the 20s. He didn't really.
Yes.
He wasn't efficient. He didn't really get a lot done for a guy who threw 35 or 40 times. Like he didn't really accomplish that much. Whereas, and this is the other thing that made the game a bit of a clinker is that Rodgers did manage to get 2 touchdowns in the first half, which ended up being enough to win the damn game, right? And then there's 4, field goals in the second half by Brady as he flails away trying to get, Perriman downfield and whatnot. And he came close. Rogers came close to a third touchdown, but I think
Yeah, it is.
Jones fumbled it,
Yeah,
right? So for the most part, I mean, you would have to say that Rogers got the better of Brady if you're measuring it like that. But to me, it was more a battle of defenses, and Green Bay's defense did a better job of keeping Brady off the board. And
absolutely.
Tampa Bay played well, but they didn't keep Rogers off the board.
And there was actually that clock controversy. Remember at the very end of the game where
Yeah, yeah,
Tampa delay of game?
yeah,
See, no, I'm just gonna say this. I'm a Brady hater. I respect him, Brady
yeah,
hater, because this is the BS that a lot of the NFL does, where they give Brady some too much rope, fam. They
yeah,
give him too many chances. If that
yeah.
was, let me give you an example. If that was Baker Mayfield, the
Anybody
game
else,
would be done. If that was Tua Tagovailoa, the game is done. If that
right?
was Daniel Jones, the game is done. But
Yeah,
they gave Brady a chance because they let him run a little bit of the clock. But this goes overall to what I'm saying. I think the defenses, especially this beginning of the season, have advanced and progressed faster than the offenses.
yeah,
Why am I saying this? Because we don't have a lot of high scoring games. So
Mm-hmm.
offenses are not going off like they do, right? So that's just something I've noticed in the past, week of football. But one thing I want to ask you about, Unc, is how about our MVP tracker? How are we looking? We're going into week 4 right now, right?
Right.
Now, for me, I'm gonna talk my ish a little bit. Lamar Jackson is now my MVP front runner. Right underneath that is Jalen Hurts
Yeah.
because Lamar is doing everything for the Ravens offense. I do not see like, bro, the Ravens defense, especially the secondary, is so
Well,
bad. We just signed
yeah.
Jason Pierre-Paul literally to help. Jason Pierre-Paul is old, man, and we just signed him last week because our defense is looking that sorry. What do
Yeah.
you think? What is your MVP tracker on? How does it look for you, man?
Remember we were debating last week with the Miami comeback. We were trying to figure out whether like
Yeah, we
Tua
were
was that
debating on it.
good
Yeah, we're speaking on it. Yep.
or was Baltimore that bad? Well, I think we got our answer
Our
this past
answers there.
week that Baltimore was just that bad. Like the defense, anyways. But
Yes.
Lamar, yeah, you've got me convinced, man. Lamar is the number one guy on the MVP track right now. That's the second week in a row I think he's had of 100 yards. So
Yes.
he is their leading running back. I believe he's the fourth or fifth ranked running back in the league. There's only two
Yes.
guys over 300 yards. He's got the same amount of yards as McCaffrey. So I mean, like Lamar, what Lamar Jackson is doing with the running game in Baltimore, on top of throwing 4 touchdowns, right? He didn't even throw that many yards, like
No.
220 yards, 218 yards. So incredibly efficient. So that's ultimately what you're looking for when you're sort of putting all those metrics on players
Mhm.
is how efficient are they? How much are they accomplishing with the number of reps they got? And Lamar gave a clinic this weekend.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
On the other side of that again is our other guy Hurts, but
Mhm.
Hurts threw for 350, but their
Yes.
running game never really got going, and I think he ran for about 50 again, which is reasonable. But he was the second. He was after Gainwell, I think,
Yeah.
in total yards. So they threw like probably like almost a 3-to-1 ratio of passes versus of runs. So yeah,
Devontae Smith had a crazy game, by the way. He was great
you
for fantasy.
yeah, and AJ wasn't that far behind. Between the two of them, they had like almost those two guys had almost 300 yards receiving,
Yes.
or 250 or something like that. They took in a great portion. Devontae Adams was one of my bigger surprises for this week because I think he
Yeah.
had like 157 yards or some really crazy number like that, like AJ Brown
Yeah.
the first week. So yeah, so that was a big surprise for me this week. But yeah, Lamar Jackson is definitely my MVP right now.
Mhm.
Saw Josh Allen. What he took a couple dents to his pedigree for MVP,
Yeah,
right? Because
you
he's got
remember that pass at the end, like it could have
yeah,
been a touchdown, right? Like
yeah,
he underthrew it. Do you think maybe it was just? Do you get nervous? What do you think? Like, do you think he just missed the guy because of a very underthrown ball at the end? Because it
yeah,
was
yeah.
right
I
next to
think
the end zone, man.
he would like it back, but
Mm,
Rosen was getting harassed all through that second half
yes,
by the Miami Rush. So that's the next thing, right? Is that Miami is now 3-0.
yes.
I'm going with them tonight against Cincinnati, even though they're on the road.
I'm actually
Because
going with them too. Yeah.
I think they're going to get after Burrow because Burrow's biggest problem has been, guys in his backfield trying to harass him. And I think Miami's going to get after him tonight, even though they're on the road, even though Cincinnati's desperate for a win. I think their hangover continues.
Yes.
Um, and I'm pretty sure that 3.5 point spread is, that'll be covered by Miami tonight. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Because
I agree.
the other thing that we saw, even though Tua didn't have a huge output, he found Waddle for a good one down the middle, split that cover two that the Bills are trying to pull off back there,
Yeah.
and also on top of that, that dime he threw into like triple coverage on the goal line. So was it Caracaf? I think his name is something like that. Carcaf.
Some random receiver. Yeah, it was like a receiver 3 or 4. Yeah, some guy.
Yeah, and but I mean, he just how he just threaded that needle. Like that ball was like just zoomed right in there. So I
Yes.
think bigger things are coming from Tua. Tua looks like he's figuring out the game, and he's got the talent to make it work, and he's got the defense to back him up. So hey, yeah. So yeah.
Telling
Miami.
you.
Yeah, Miami is an early out of the gate surprise, and I think they're not doing it with binding wire, smoke and mirrors, right? I think
No,
they're
it's they're well coached, man.
yeah,
And that's
yes.
something that I really noticed about the way
That young
Tua's
guy,
playing.
McDaniel is his name?
It's a Mike McDaniels. It's
Yeah.
not Josh McDaniels. He's
No,
not
no, I
ruining the
realize it's not
Raiders.
Josh,
It's
but
Mike McDaniels, and he was the offensive coordinator for the 49ers. Well,
right,
Kyle Shanahan is really the offensive coordinator, but he was basically
part of that
coordinating with
tree.
him. Yeah, under that tree. And that actually is good that you said that, because I think Tua is my number 3 on the MVP ladder. Why? Because Miami, I believe, is the best team in football right now in my eyes. Just an eye
Really?
test, because their defense is ferocious, man. The
They
the
went up
the, the Bills through Josh Allen threw the ball like 60 something times, some crazy stat, and
yep,
he put up maybe one touchdown. What
yep.
does that mean? That means that the defense is controlling the pace of the game and they're handling it on third downs. And if you can stop an offense on third downs effectively and you have a pass rush, I'm telling you, Miami's defense is very underrated. They are coming for
Hmm.
the quarterback. That's why I have them beating the Bengals. And my only concern in this MVP talk really is that I don't know how much Lamar can take on his back, man. Because
Yeah.
this like 15 more games left. If the Ravens cannot establish a consistent good running game, then
Yeah.
Lamar is in trouble, because bro, like it's not like you get more healthy over the season. And the thing about Tua and that
Especially if
offense
you're
is they're
running that
pretty
many yards.
balanced.
Yep.
Sorry?
If you're running that many yards,
Yeah, if
Lamar
you're
is
running
going
that
to get
many yards, you're responsible for like 99% of the offense.
yeah.
Let's get some more touches to other guys, because I don't see Miami losing a lot of games. I don't see the Ravens losing a lot of games. I think the Tua has a big chance to win MVP. So does Lamar. But I just
Yep.
want this is a personal as a Ravens fan. I just want the Ravens offense to progress and give other guys some chances. I want J.K. Dobbins, selfishly, because I have in fantasy, I want J.K. Dobbins to get some touches, man. I want to see that. But
Yeah.
on this, just something I really want to touch on, based off last week, brother. What did you think of that Cowboys Giants Monday night game? I've been meaning to break
Yeah.
it down with you. What did you think of Cooper Rush, Dak? Is that a QB controversy for real, or is it like smoke and mirrors? What do you think, bro?
Well, I mean, I haven't heard that much about controversy where he's concerned. Like,
Mhm.
Dak's still injured, right? He's
Yeah,
like,
he's still injured for a little
yeah, like
bit.
when he's healthy, he comes in. That's it, right? That
Yeah.
isn't. I mean, that's
I think
you got
it's
a
because
lot of
people
money
are
invested in him.
talking. People are talking because, but you have to let him play because he takes so much money off the cap. But Cooper
Mhm.
Rush actually was throwing some dimes, man.
Like Cooper Rush was okay. His
Mm,
numbers were not super prolific, but if you had to compare, I mean, he won the game,
yeah,
and playing against Daniel Jones, he certainly looked good because Jones looked terrible. But the important thing was that when you broke it down, he had a pretty clean sheet.
yeah,
He threw for a couple of touchdowns.
yeah,
He didn't fumble or make mistakes.
yeah,
Although there was one play that it was kind of it was funny. It looked like he was improvising at the line and he was changing the play. And it was a give to Zeke,
yeah.
but
I was
Zeke
giving
was
to
like sort of like, well, what's somebody tell me the play? So
Zeke.
certainly a mistake Dak probably wouldn't have made.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, if Dak's healthy, I don't see no, throwing 215 yards against the Giants on the road. I mean, it's workmanlike. You got the win, but it's not the type of production that I think puts Dak Prescott out of a job.
I don't personally, I don't think that either. You're right. I agree with you. But at the same time, I see that I don't know what it is, but the Cowboys offense
He's,
is looking pretty smooth under Cooper Rush. He's executing plays and he's
he's very
not turning
confident.
the ball over, which is something that a lot of quarterbacks do. And that's where the Cowboys they're doing well in that low turnovers, and the run game actually looked alive during that game.
Well,
You know,
Zeke broke one at one
yeah,
point. I
it
think
was
he
good.
rumbled for 30, 40 yards.
Yes,
He looked like the guy from a couple years ago.
from 2016.
Oh, geez, it's
Right?
been that many years.
It's been that many years. Bro, talking about, running backs doing something. Let's talk about fantasy, man, because you know what we do. We talk
Yeah,
fantasy on
yeah.
this podcast, brother. How did your fantasy how did it go? Which people are gems in which people are flopping. You know what I mean?
Well,
I remember we talked about Amon
yeah.
Ra last week. We talked a little bit about Swift. Who are your booms and busts so far, man? Because for me, I'll
Well,
say this: a surprising boom for me is AJ Brown for the Philly from Philly.
yeah.
He's actually playing really well. We talked about Devontae Smith. Who are your booms and busts that you've noticed so far? Maybe what should people look out for from your
Well,
projections, brother?
the first thing I would like to say about this week's fantasy numbers is
Hmm.
the return of the running back, right? We saw a couple of bell
Yes.
cow performances. I mean, ignoring Lamar for a second. Uh, but what's his face in Chicago? Herbert, he put up 30 fantasy points and about like
Herbert.
157 yards with only about 2 receptions. So
Yeah.
he wasn't like a receiving guy at all,
No.
right?
No.
So yeah, that was very impressive. So that was cool to see. Devonta Smith, of course, is the other one I saw coming up. That I said, wow, that's really impressive. A guy in Vegas, who was his name, Mac Collins. I
Yeah,
think he
Matt
racked
Collins, the
up
receiver, the
for
random one. Yeah.
160 yards, right? And but the one that we mentioned before, who is looking like a gem, is that Olave guy in New
Chris
Orleans.
Olave. I'm starting him
Another
this week. Yep.
another triple digit week. I think he had 147 yards, something like that. And
Yep.
Michael Thomas had about 60. So there's a clear preference for Jameis when he's completing the ball
Yes.
to Olave. And so that's an interesting gem that I don't think too many people had on their list.
Yes, and like we can talk about some busts, man, and I'll speak about a personal bust of mine, Tom Brady. Let's start
Hmm.
off with that. I
Yep.
had him in my obviously one of my PPR leagues. I literally dropped him this week. Another bust, obviously a Russell Wilson. If we're going quarterbacks, if we're going receivers, DJ Moore. He hasn't been doing that well. I projected him to do really, really good
Me
this
too.
year, but he's been kind of a bust. He's been putting up like maybe 10 points, maybe eight. I don't know what's happening, but they're
Baker
not using
Mayfield
him
is the
enough.
problem. I think Baker Mayfield's the problem. I took a
Yeah,
look at his numbers, even though they got the win, good
they
quality
gotta
win.
win. Yeah, yeah, it was
Right?
well.
But he was 12 for 25 with one touchdown or one pick. I can't remember which one. But I mean, like, that's not what Carolina was expecting when they
No,
brought that guy in there at all. So I think that's part of the problem right there is that he's not like 12 incompletions at 50%. Like, that's not good. And
no.
he definitely has the guy in Moore. So I've been kind of surprised to see his lack of production as well.
And at the same time, Moore is, this term, it's a wide back or whatever, like a wide receiver running back. You can
Mhm.
put him on some jet sweeps.
Right.
You can kind of toss him the ball. You know what I mean? You can play him. I'm not saying you pay him like Cordell Patterson off Atlanta because he's been a gem. That's somebody. Cordero Patterson. If you do not have him on your fantasy squad, make a trade because
Yep.
god damn, he is killing it. But you can use
He's
him
been doing
in
it
the
for
you can
years
use
too now.
sorry?
He's been doing that actually sort of like I didn't mean to interrupt you,
Yes.
but he was doing that in Minnesota and he
Yes.
started doing it in Atlanta almost the minute he got there. And it's like everybody's always trying to supplant him with somebody else. But at the end of the day, the guy can run and receive. Like the guy's a receiver by trade,
He's a
but
receiver
he
trade. Yeah.
runs really well. Yeah.
And that's what y'all need to do. Y'all need these offensive coordinators need to get a little more creative. Because if you have a guy like DJ Moore, you can use him in the run game, man. He's a
Yep.
fast, strong guy. Take him. And these are some booms and busts, right? But before we finish off on the pod, man, let's talk about some lines, point spreads. I remember that we mentioned about this last week. What do you have on the terms of lines and spreads and point spreads? Which teams are looking up? Which teams are looking down, brother? Put us on game, bro.
Right, right. Well, let me tell you, I singled out a couple of point spread matches that I thought were interesting. The Cincinnati Miami one tonight, of course, it's also
Nice.
current because we got a game going on tonight.
Yes,
But the
sir.
Bills Ravens game is
Yeah.
3.5 points, and they want
Three
a
and a half
plus or
points.
minus of like 50 and a half. So they're
Mm.
expecting fireworks, and it's only a 3.5 point spread. But I'm all over the Ravens for
Uh,
that. They're 3.5 points, and they're at home. So
Yes.
they're the underdog at home, right? So I'm not buying that. I think that they're going to take care of the Bills. Their
Yeah.
defense again is a problem, but I think that as we saw last week, you can harass Josh Allen. We saw the blueprint for how to do it last week. So we'll see if Baltimore can recover enough
Yes.
to sort of plug that ship on defense a little bit. I believe they will cover that spread.
Mhm.
That'll be interesting.
I
Another
believe
one
they'll
that
cover it too, by the way, because I'd take the over because I think it's going to be a fireworks show.
yeah, I
Both
do too.
defenses are not the greatest, and also the Bills defense is a bit depleted. I know they have some injuries, so I'd
They're,
probably take the over, fam. Yeah,
yeah, I mean they've been effective in getting in the backfield, as we saw last week and also the
yeah,
week before. But yeah, the Bills, what the Bills are doing that's really interesting actually is that they're trying to tweak the cover two business. They're
yeah.
trying to make it look like they're putting two guys at the back,
Break them
right? You
down.
know, but it's like then they cheat up on it the second they get an idea of what's happening at the line. And so you'll have your corners and you'll have your two safeties, like four guys back there. So
Yeah.
people think, okay, we're gonna run. But it's like they're sort of drifting back, but then they jump back up to the line as soon as they see what's going on. And so they've
Mhm.
actually been kind of effective with that. But as we saw last week, you can get in that backfield against Rosen. And
Yes,
so
you
that's what I'm
can.
assuming that Baltimore is going to do. I'm assuming Baltimore is going to send the house. You know what I mean? And
A
and
lot
and
of
just
blitzes. Yeah,
yeah, that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I
yeah.
believe that they can cover that.
Me too.
The other one that's interesting is Chiefs Tampa Bay. Again, another big match. Half point, and they're calling for fewer points. 45 is the over under on that. But there, I mean, I'm going to take Tampa Bay just on the strength of the defense. After
Hmm.
what Mahomes didn't get accomplished in Indianapolis last weekend.
Yeah,
Again, he's got like he's kind of like Rodgers in a way. He doesn't have that one big receiver right now after having lost Tyreek Hill, and
yeah.
so he's relying on Kelts a lot, and he's spreading the ball around to Juju Schuster and the other guys. You know, receivers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Mhm.
They're not getting a lot of dominance in the running game. So I'm having a hard time trying to imagine Mahomes on the road. I mean, it's a pick 'em game basically, but
Major pick 'em game. You're right.
yeah, if they could only score 20 points against Indianapolis, I'm sure they're going to get less than that against Tampa if their defense holds the form, and hopefully Brady can find a touchdown receiver this week instead of having to rely on Ryan Sukup.
Man, that Tampa offense is
that
disgusting. Ryan
that guy probably
Suckup is your
paid
guy.
off for me.
Like, it's
The Jags won on the road, like significantly last week, and then they're Eagles are favored by 6.5 at home, and I'm
Yeah,
kind of curious. I'm just kind of curious to see. I mean, they're the only two teams that have been putting up 50+ points the last couple of weeks, so I just thought that was an interesting looking game.
I think that game is going to be very interesting because think about it, man. Doug Peterson is coming back, right?
Yeah,
By the way, I'm recording.
no, that's
By the way, Doug Peterson's coming back to Philly, and this is going to be bro. If we're talking maybe coach of the year, Doug Peterson is turning this franchise around, brother. Like, think about it. I might take the Jags as a big underdog, and you could, whatever the over is, you got to bet the over, fam, because
yeah.
yo.
No, I'm plus 6.5. The Jags too. I think they showed themselves to be capable road warriors last weekend.
Yeah, I agree. Big road dogs, man. And Trevor Lawrence is playing like an actual number one pick. I'm shocked, bro. I was like, this man
He's
sucks.
finally he's finally starting to get through it, right? A lot of people expect people to take off right away, but playing quarterback in the NFL, it doesn't always just happen like that. He's got the physical tools, but and also too, right? Remember they got who was it, Christian Kirk out of
Christian
Arizona
Kirk.
last year?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And another one of these guys you're primarily expecting, the last couple of years for him to produce. We started to produce with Trevor Lawrence.
You know who actually I liked a lot? I like a lot in fantasy, and I've been trying to trade for this guy, James Robinson, their
Yeah,
tailback. And for me, I projected Travis Etienne to be that bell cow, the number one back. And boy, was I wrong, bro. Because I should have
how it
grabbed
goes
James.
sometimes.
Wow, James Robinson is killing it. I think the combination of his run game and Trevor Lawrence hitting the right guys at the right time. They have something going on down there in Jacksonville, man. Who would have thought, bro?
Yeah. Well, so many people, so many years, they're always sort of like this, like, kind of flashy, kind of stylish, out of left field, kind of, I think this is the year the Jags do something. It's the AFC Coast, remember, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Who would have
But,
thought?
yeah, Peterson's a competent coach, so.
Yeah, man. And now as I look at some of the games right now, brother, let's do a little preview for the people, man. You know what I mean? Let's do a little preview for the week. A game that really stands out to me, brother, you know what I mean, is the Lions. Let me see who they're playing again, man. I'm just seeing here. Aren't the Lions? They're playing somebody big time. But I've been trying to say this. The Lions are surprising me, right? And whatever game they're playing, I think they're playing. Who are they playing again?
They're playing Seattle.
Playing Seattle. My mistake. Yeah. They're going to be doing work, and they're the surprise team for me. And I'm watching every Lions game because they're putting up 30 points every time. So if you're thinking of any lines, man, you gotta take the over with them because, bro, they're putting up 30 each time. They might lose, which is a big thing for them, but they're gonna put up points, man. Another matchup. Yeah, Jamal Williams. Yes.
I picked him up to handcuff DeAndre Swift, and they're talking about DeAndre Swift possibly being out until after their bye week, which would be week 6 or 7. So rather than risk injuring him further, they figure they're going to give him the next couple of weeks off. It's looking like,
Yes.
And that means that Jamal Williams, who's been vulturing touchdowns as it is ready to just slide right in there without any impact. So yeah, between Amos Ron and that backfield, Detroit is looking like they can put some points on the board. If they can just tighten up their defense a little bit, they're looking at a big multi-game improvement this year, I believe.
Absolutely. Two more games that stand out to me that we haven't really talked about is that Denver and Vegas game. Man, I think that's a game that might creep up and potentially have playoff implications because if Vegas loses this one, right, which I think they might, bro, and if I think the season's over, dog. I think Josh McDaniels gets fired maybe, what I'm saying, by week 8, week 9, because if they go 0-4, right, and then Denver is 3-1, Denver might be at the top of the division. Let's say the Chiefs lose to Tampa, fam. Right? Now you have the Denver Broncos, dog, with with Hackett might be the number 1 seed in the AFC West. Who would have thought, brother? What do you think of that Denver Vegas look? How does that look for you, bro?
Well, I think that's a real toss-up because Vegas has looked terrible, but they've still managed to produce some offense. Whereas, Denver, on the other hand, has managed to put some W's together, but without any offense. And so I'm kind of concerned about Denver's ability. Are they playing in Vegas or in Denver?
I believe they're playing in Vegas. I'm just gonna quickly check up and keep you updated. If they are playing in Denver, that might change my opinion. I'm just gonna check up on you and get back to you, but I just gotta wait for this thing to load right here. But I get what you're saying though because that altitude, right? And it looks they're playing in Denver. Yeah, Denver game.
So they're playing in Denver.
Correct.
So that's sort of a home field advantage.
My mistake. Sorry, they're playing in Vegas, Allegiant Stadium.
They are playing in Vegas.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
So if they're playing in Vegas, I call it a toss-up. Just simply because I have not seen Denver put up enough points to really impress me.
Yeah. Facts.
But Portland, like we predicted, has been doing very well. Javonte has been putting up, some running and whatnot. But what's really missing is Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Russell Wilson. He needs a 300-yard passing game to win this game, I think, unless the defense just takes everything over. And I think we need to see at least 30 or 40 yards of rushing out of Russell Wilson before we can start being confident of that team week to week. But you're right. At 3-1 in that division, if Mahomes, we said it was going to be madness from the very beginning in that AFC West.
Oh, yeah.
But a win is a win. Whether it was an 11-10 win or a 14-12 win, whatever. So you can't take those W's away. But I'm not seeing efficient offense out of Denver right now.
I do not see it either, bro. And like you said, You need a rush to run a little bit, give you 300 yards, a touchdown or two, and that's all you need. And I think that the way they're being coached, right, meaning their offense is looking so bad. And then think about it like this: let's say you're Denver, you're Denver defensive player. You're holding teams to one touchdown, which is amazing. That's all you need, in this modern NFL. If you can hold a team to only one touchdown and a few field goals, you've done more than enough. But the Denver offense is so sorry. Bro, let me tell you something, man. That San Francisco versus Denver game, that was one of the most sorry football games I've ever seen. I'm sorry. I was like, bro, what
Yeah,
am I
no, it was
watching right
awful.
now?
And San Francisco was just as bad. I
Oh,
mean,
yes.
Garoppolo, I
Oh, yes.
expect more out of Garoppolo. I've just seen him do better, but he is just not exciting at all right now. And it's not like he has some lack of tools.
Oh, yeah.
So,
This goes back to the last game I want to focus on. It'll pique my interest and maybe it might pique yours, fam. Is the Rams versus the Niners, right? Monday night football. They're playing the Levi stadiums, right? So San Fran is at home, and basically a repeat of the NFC Championship game last year, right? And for all the BS that we saw from the Rams, in the past few weeks, I think the Rams might take this because the
I
San
was about
Francisco
to.
offense is looking so bad, man. Like,
I was about
and
to.
I like Jimmy G. I'm just kind of surprised, but so that I might have the Rams on Monday night. What do you think, brother?
Yeah, I would have to kind of concur with that. Cause the thing I was just about to say is that the Rams have enough to handle what we saw coming out of San Francisco over this last weekend.
Mhm.
Because whatever you want to say about interceptions and whatnot from Stafford, he's also throwing touchdowns.
Yeah, exactly.
And
He's pulling an Eli. He gives some, he takes some, bro.
right, okay, and they've got Cooper Cup.
Yeah.
So that those two things by themselves, I mean, because it's looking like they could score 20. It'd be like the first one to 17 wins that game up that. And I'm guessing that will be LA, even on the road, even in Levi Stadium. I just,
Yeah,
yeah.
a great point, man. I think the X factor is oh my God, the tight end from the Niners escaped me. It really depends on how that tight end looks off the Niners, man. I am so save me, brother. The tight end of the
Kittle. You're
Kittle.
talking about Mr. Kittle.
Yeah, I'm talking about Kittle, man. I'm so tired,
Yeah.
bro. I'm saying like this. It really depends on how Kittle does because if Kittle comes in and shows out, he hasn't had a big game, which is surprising because Kittle, in my opinion, is a top three tight end when healthy, when
When
good.
he's healthy and when he's producing, he can take over a game because he's like
Yes.
Kelsey that way. He can throw down two touchdowns like real quick, or more. So, but again, that's incumbent upon Jimmy G getting him the ball. And
Yes.
we're yes, I mean, 185, 215 yards. Like, these are not competent NFL passing yard numbers. And
Yes.
so Kittle cannot thrive until Garoppolo starts putting that ball downfield more. Same thing with Samuel,
Oh yeah.
because they're figuring out Debo's running game a little bit. I noticed he had 6 running attempts.
Yeah.
So now he's still caught, I think 75 or 80, right? So it's not like he's going away or something like that. But that whole crazy Debo X Factor type, we're not seeing that come out right now, and we're not seeing Kittle either.
Yes.
I really have to wonder where the points are going to come from if they're going to beat Stafford. And and even if Jimmy does get thrown downfield, who's waiting for him? But Jalen Ramsey. So yeah, I think that LA has enough for San Francisco, even on the road.
I agree, man. I got the Rams as well, but who knows, man? Jimmy G is so bipolar. But I will give him this. I will give him credit, dog. I will give Jimmy credit. He was rehabbing this entire offseason, and the man barely took any first team reps. It's almost like this is his preseason games during the NFL season. So, because they were playing Trey Lance the whole time, they were prepping for Trey. They weren't prepping for Jimmy G.
That is so true.
You know what I
That is
mean?
so true. That's actually a really valid point that you're making right there.
Yeah.
That he is kind of shaken off the rust because of all that hype on Trey Lance. That's actually a very good point. I'd be inclined to believe that. So yeah, let's hope for better things from him come say week 6 or so.
That's what I'm saying because like once he gets flowing, if you really think about it, bro, the Niners without Jimmy G are a sorry team, sorry
No,
franchise
please.
because
Yeah.
he as corny or maybe inconsistent, he has that Eli Manning effect where he just gets his team the wins, bro. It just doesn't make sense. It's just like you're not super elite, you're not super crazy,
No.
but you're gonna take this team to wins, and I don't know what that is, but Jimmy G has it, bro.
He plays the classic style of quarterback. He really
Yes.
does. He drops back. He goes down through his check down list. He's a very competent quarterback. And we saw what he did when he had really good tools around him that one season that Brady was injured for the Patriots, the one that got him all this big money.
Yeah.
But since then, yeah, he's taken that game manager tag sometimes, but that's not always a bad thing, right? Given
No,
all
it's
the
not.
mediocrity that exists in the NFL, having a guy who is competent enough to go through his reads and go through the tree and find the guy, it's not super exciting, but I've seen that guy play pretty competent football. I've never seen him really do poorly. I've seen him do less than lights out, but I've never seen him do poorly.
Then that's basically Kirk Cousins' entire career. Game manager, bro. He's been 10 years in the league. I mean, like, some people, game managing ain't that bad. You know what I mean? Might not get you a lot of Super Bowls, but you're probably starting in the NFL, I guess, right?
He got paid more than me last week.
Oh, shit. Definitely got paid more than all of us out here, man. But, on that note, man, I'm just going to say it like this. We're in for a great week of football, man. I'm about to watch this Cincy, you know what I'm saying, versus Miami. Apparently, Cincy has already put on some points. Any last points before I let you go, brother, and we wrap this up, my guy?
No, man, I think it's going to be a fantastic weekend. The NFL takes very few weekends off, in my experience, as far as the entertainment factor goes. And I think we've got some good games coming up. And I think we're going to start to see the offense and start to leverage what they've got a little bit against the defense a little bit more. Like